Welcome to another episode of Chicas and Chai. We're so happy you're here. Make sure to follow us on all our platforms. We're on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts as Chicas and Chai. Follow us on Instagram at Chicas and Chai Podcast. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning back in. I am so excited to introduce our special guest this week, our first guest ever. It is my good friend from college. Her name is Tamara. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Liz, I'm so excited. Thank you for having me as your first guest. This is such a big deal to me. My name is Tamara Gabrielle Ibarducea Tugo.
I really admire all the work that I've seen you do. You're a speech pathologist. You have so many things going for you. We actually live in the same area and we went to college together, which, this time of year, I know there's like lots of Friendsgivings and potlucks. And one of the best memories that I have with you
Okay.
is the potluck we had back in college. It was us and a bunch of other girls. To give everyone some insight on how I met Tamara, we both were in the speech pathology undergrad program. I know I've said this before, but I was really lost in what I wanted to do in my undergrad. I explored music and I did so many other things. And among one of them was speech pathology. I honestly really, really loved it. The best thing that I got from it was meeting the girl group that we have going on, still get together from time to time. I wouldn't have met you another way. We just didn't have other classes together. But why don't you tell us about your cultural background, how that has influenced your identity?
Yes, I feel like we have come to a full circle moment. You know what I mean? Looking back, us meeting at ODU, I agree with you. Out of all of the memories and all the experiences, one thing that I'm thankful for is our friendship and our girl group that we formed and all of those moments that we worked together, studied together, went out together, had potlucks. So I miss those times and I'm thankful that you are like down the street.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we truly are down the street.
But yes, I'm Tamara. I would identify as Filipino American. Both of my parents, my mom and dad, are from the Philippines. They are from two different parts of the Philippines. They actually met in LA. They started dating. I was born in Glendale, California. And then we moved to the East Coast soon after to live with my aunt in Florida. And then my dad joined the military. And so then we ended up in Virginia Beach, Virginia. So I would say majority of my upbringing is in Virginia Beach. My mom was a nurse. My dad was in the Navy. So I would say I lived a pretty, what I would think like a normal upbringing, but I am an only child. So I think a lot of my experiences are interesting because my parents really tied into, what their upbringing was like, but they also were mixing it with what their experiences were today in the US. And so that phase, I had a lot of challenges with that. I didn't really have anybody who I could base my experiences off of or share things with. So it really was me and my parents. Being in Virginia Beach, I found a lot of my hobbies through like my classmates, my community, being near the base. So I would say I'm very Americanized and my household, I speak English, but I do understand Bisaya, which is a dialect in the Philippines. So Tagalog is the big language that everybody knows of, but I actually don't understand Tagalog at all. I just cannot pick it up. I would say I probably understand Spanish more than I do understand Tagalog. But Bisaya is our household language. So I would say receptively, I'm bilingual.
I knew you had roots in California somehow because I know you've done trips there. You're from Glendale.
I guess I'm a Glendale girl.
As soon as you said that, I was like, you're a California girl.
There's trouble in that because when someone says, where are you from? That's a loaded question. Yeah, I don't know what to say because I think I have to credit my upbringing. Like I'm from Virginia and that was majority of my upbringing, but I was born in California. That's what I would like to say, but I almost feel weird giving credit to California when majority of my upbringing is Virginia. And I do think I'm also an East Coast girl, I don't know how to
I
answer
love
that.
the East Coast. I actually am not a big fan of California other than like the national parks. Wait, so when people ask you, where are you from? What's your answer?
It's not one sentence. I can tell you that. I
Yeah.
have to say exactly what I told you, which is, well, I was born in California, but I've been living in Virginia pretty much my whole life. And the only thing about Virginia is it's pretty isolating. I don't have any siblings. It's just me.
Like you said, it's a loaded question. And even when I get asked that, I don't know what my answer is. I'm like, I'm from Southern Virginia. They stare at me, oh, no, but where are you from? So I'm with you on that. I know you touched on you were an only child. And I think to me, that's really interesting because I grew up in a Mexican household with four siblings. It was five of us. And so I think there was a lot of rich culture, a lot of noise. There was so much going on and it was amazing. And then now you grow up and you're like, well, I don't even know if I want a child, let alone more than one child. There's this really negative narrative about only childs or they're lonely. What is your take on that?
That's a really good question. Looking back, all of my cousins, they all have siblings. I mean, I have so many cousins and watching their dynamic and then thinking about my own, a lot of my time was spent with my parents. A lot of the decision making was spent with my parents. A lot of the planning was spent with my parents. How we communicate. Something that I like to do is, even until now, I analyze. Oh, you have one sister, you're the youngest. Oh, is that why they're like that? Like, is that why that's their personality? Is this why I am who I am? Now that I look back, I can understand why my parents just stuck to one. I think a big message that my mom has shared here and there is she just wanted to make sure that I was okay. She wanted to make sure that I was covered in so many senses. And I think my mom is a big planner and I think she's a little bit of a worrier, which I am too. And so I think just having one is a big deal and it's hard. And so now I understand why they made that decision and why they didn't have another one. I still think I would like to have that relationship. And I wonder how that would impact my personality. People looking at only children as being lonely or spoiled, things happening their way. I can kind of see where that comes from. Firstly, I don't think I come off as someone where things have to go my way, but I do think that there is a lonely aspect to it when it comes to planning. I'm used to just doing my own thing. And so, in some ways, yeah, it can be lonely, but it's also allowed me to pour into my own hobbies, my own interests, and things that I like. And it's allowed my parents to dabble into that too. Like I kind of share that with my parents. Throughout the years, I've invested in so many clubs, organizations, programs. I think that's really helped me and it's made me collaborate with other people and work with other people. So I think things ended up being okay. I just was able to make my own decisions on what I wanted to do.
And I think that that's a good segue into the next topic. In the last episode, I shared what it's like to be a 30-year-old married woman without children, making sure you make these very conscientious decisions of you're going to have a child. And once you do, it's like, I think people are ready to have the other child or plan for the other baby. And yes, maybe it could be lonely to be an only child. I don't know that, but hearing you and hearing it, there's also this level of like independence that I think you've had, closeness that you've had with your parents. I do think being the youngest in five, I think it's true what they say. We don't get the same parent. I don't think I got the same mom as my sibling. By the time I came around, I was the fifth child. I had a lot of freedom that they didn't, and I'm aware of that.
And although your upbringing is different from mine, when you say, I got a different mother than maybe my older sibling did, I think about that because I like to think about how my parents were parenting as first time parents. So I was experiencing my parents as first time parents. And now that I'm adult, I think about that and I'm like, maybe had I had an older sibling, I would have had a different upbringing. Maybe there might have been some areas there would have been a little bit more loose and allowed me to explore. Maybe they would have been more flexible. But I do often think about how they were parenting me as first time parents. And I think that's a big deal because my fiance, RJ, he's also Filipino and he's the first child. And then his sister is I think like 10 years younger than him. And so I look at the two of them and I tell him, oh my gosh, like their parenting is probably so different. Your experience with your parents are completely different from your younger sister's experience.
I think that there is a certain barrier that the elder children break or only children break that I didn't have to as the youngest one. And in your position, like you were the only one that was able to challenge your parents. And it's interesting that you're with someone that was the elder sibling. I feel like in my family, I am the one that kind of just rebelled a little bit. And I say that with confidence because everyone knows it and everyone makes fun of me because of it in my family. But I know you were talking about the hobbies that you've delved into.
I'm sure for those who are listening, they've heard of pickleball. And I think it's funny. It's like this buzzword that's going around.
Yeah.
And like, if you haven't done it, just try it. And then you're going to become just as addicted as we are.
I would love to try it with you sometime.
Yeah,
I've never tried it. But you make it look fun.
we definitely should play.
What got you into it?
I'm very much into hobbies and I'm very much into having multiple hobbies. Like I said, bringing it back to being an only child, I try new things. And so that's nothing new to me. And I love to, instead of signing up for something for the year, I like to think about what should I do in the next 3 months? Do I want
Wow.
to try something new? If I try something new, do I want to stick to it to 6 months? So it just kind of like eases the pressure when it comes to taking on new hobbies. And that's how I looked at pickleball. I mentioned pickleball to my fiance and he wanted to try it too. And so one day I came home and he had the paddles, the ball, the shoes, and he was like, let's do it. And I knew instantly, okay, this is actually our first hobby that we can do together. We love hobbies, we do them separately, we have our own things that we like.
Well, I love that hobby for you. I know that you are also on TikTok, so feel free to elaborate.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. TikTok is another one for me. I would say content creating has become a hobby for me. And I'm sure with you taking on this podcast, you're seeing there's so many ins and outs and it becomes a part of your life. I started TikTok when I was unemployed. I quit my job and I had plans to move to Northern Virginia. So to move here, and that's something that I've always wanted to do. So thankfully, I was able to just take some time off and just dive into things that I wanted to do. I was doing yoga, I was going on walks, exploring, trying new foods. So again, like interests and hobbies were keeping me going. I think once I stepped away from being around my friends and moving to a new place where pretty much, I mean, I just had you that I knew that was in the area. I didn't really have anybody here that I knew that I could hit up or reach out to. I started to want to share what I was doing with my friends that were now far from me. And I could see the fun in creating videos and sharing them of things that I was actually doing and enjoying. And then the next time that I see them, they know exactly what I'm up to. I mean, they've kept up with me and they're like, oh, hey, how was that trip? I saw that food. That was really good. Where was it? I think once I started to just share who I was and what I genuinely loved, because again, I love so many things, I have so many interests, I started to notice that people liked it too. And they responded really well to that. And they started to engage with me. And that's where I started to see when people say that there are communities online, and sometimes, I mean, they can be the most positive and loving and embracing and encouraging. It gets very addicting once you see that. And I genuinely love that about TikTok and the internet.
Yeah, I love that you look at it like that because I feel like being able to create these videos and have people who don't live near you be a part of your life,
Mhm.
I think that's so cool.
I like travel. I like dance. I like pickleball. I love sharing my relationship. I love vlogging and just see who responds to it. And then the community will find you through the algorithm. I kind of want to post about this a little bit more because this makes me happy. And then that's how you connect. So it does come to you really easily.
I love that. And I think that is how I have learned a little bit more about your fiance. So let's into that a little bit. I remember when you started dating your now fiance
Mhm.
and now seeing you got engaged. I know that in the past you've dated outside of your ethnicity and now being within. How's that culturally?
There's so much to share. That makes me just think about my life. So, when they say when you turn 25 and things just start clicking,
Absolutely.
yeah, I swear there was a shift in me. I was working, I've graduated grad school, I'm working my regular job, I'm living in my hometown, no worries there. I still had an idea of what I wanted to do. I just didn't know when. And I swear when I hit around 25 years old, I just noticed there were some things that I started to reflect on more. And I started to learn what I liked and what I didn't like. I mean, I didn't really have a backbone. And not that I was suffering in any way. It's just I didn't understand myself. And by 25, I was realizing like, wait, this is my boundary. I don't like this. I can't get along with that. I think I want a little bit more of this. And I think I started to reflect, how do I look at my life 10 years from now? And I need to find somebody who naturally fits in with that. Now I know what I want. Now I know what my boundaries are and how I want things to look. And I think I just needed to find that puzzle piece. I didn't know how. I was at a point in my life too where I thought, you know what, I'm 25. I could be single for like 5 years and I would be happy. I was genuinely okay with where I was at. And there was something about my journey where I just knew things would be okay when it came to my relationship life. I really just knew that at some point I was going to meet that person if I just stuck to what made me happy and prioritize myself. And I swear the day after I had this conversation in my head, I met RJ. When I saw him, I wasn't thinking like, oh my gosh, like, that's the guy I'm gonna date him. Like, cause I didn't have that mentality. But when we started talking, it's almost like we soon were realizing there were things that were aligning to the point where it almost was scary. And we were almost pleased about it. And we didn't expect it. We went to different colleges, totally different communities, but there were some things that are in our background that we aligned with. I mean, we're both Filipino, but not only that, we're from like the same area and we know of the same language. And I think as we started to talk the same night that we met, he had a lot of goals and values that I felt seen because that's what I felt. I share the same values with him and we have the same outlook on life. So I felt like the puzzle pieces were fitting perfectly together. So there was something about it where I just had to keep seeing him and keep learning him, and we were just excited to see each other all the time.
I remember we talked about it a little bit when you were dating him, and I could just tell, like, I think this relationship was a healthy one for you because of the way I felt like you were just fully immersed in being yourself. That it felt like, wow, like seeing someone doing that while starting a relationship. I love that for you.
Thank you. No, and I didn't expect to be with someone who was Filipino as well. Like I never went into it thinking I have to find that person, but there are a lot of things that I feel seen and I feel understood and I feel heard. And I think that is beautiful and sometimes it's rare. So I think once I started to meet his family and he met mine, there's just a level of comfortability that I'm like, oh my God, this makes so.
Do you think it was that cultural aspect?
I think it definitely played a big part because it's almost like instead of maybe being worried about, what the expectations might be or where I'm coming from or where my family is coming from, it's not something that I have to explain. I feel like it's very much understood. I mean, it could be something as big as how our culture is and how our traditions are and opinions too, some challenges that I face, and even to something as little like, it's dinner time and I've had friends thought it was weird that we eat with our hands, when we're eating rice and fish. And it's like looking over and seeing, like, oh my gosh, like, oh, we're just the same. This is how we grew up and this is totally normal. There's so much comfort in that.
I think that's really cool
Yeah.
that you have that. And I mean, I could say something similar. My husband is half Persian, half Colombian. So his Colombian side, I am able, like, there's this Latino side to him that he is able to speak Spanish with my family, with my mom, with my dad. And there's this like mutual understanding of the culture and things are okay and normal. And how things may come across as rude in the culture, you just don't really have to look over and be like, hey, like this is how it goes. This is a part of the culture. But I know you've talked about a lot of things. You've talked about having a TikTok and really embracing that, um, being a speech pathologist. So, as a speech pathologist, even as an influencer on TikTok, how do you find a voice to be confident? And what is your advice for others that are looking to find their voice in these spaces where you could often be underrepresented as a woman of color, Filipino American woman?
That's a really good question. I think this answer has had to come with time. And I think while I'm still learning to be confident, I have so many moments that I'm not confident. I think the advice that I would give is just to make space. Like, be in this space and put yourself there, and don't be afraid to speak up and just make space, like exist. Don't blend in, don't bring yourself back just to allow others to make space for themselves. When I was in grad school, I was a lot younger, and looking back, I just like, gosh, I was so young. I didn't know myself. I wasn't confident. I didn't know how to make that space or how to be comfortable. I think the Hampton Roads has a really good melting pot of people, but I do wish there were more people that I could relate to. You might not find those people that you can relate to at that time, but they're out there, and just make space and be who you are, and don't be afraid. Because what a lot of people tell me when it comes to sharing things about themselves, being vulnerable and posting on the internet is like, oh my gosh, I don't like how I talk, or maybe like, I don't know what people think about this if I post this video, or I don't want these people to see it. Once I just let that go, and I was perfectly fine. And I thought, you know what? Maybe this feels uncomfortable and cringe, but I'm happy sharing this. I'm excited to share it. I'm excited to make it my project and just express myself in the way that I want. There's so much peace once you do that. And you're just so happy with your life. And you almost like romanticize all of these bits and pieces for you. And I think that requires you being in the space and making space for yourself. I do think that posting on the internet and sharing things that you love, it does bring out that confidence that everybody should have. And I think a blessing that's come with this is that I found a lot of people who have messaged me because they can relate to me. Whether it be my background and me being Filipino, because as a speech pathologist, we are like, Asians are like 4.5%
Wow.
statistically. So it's a very, very small community. So when someone messages me and they say, I'm Filipino too, and, I want to be a part of this and I want to be an SLP, it means a lot to me because there's not that many of us. And so I think when you share things that you genuinely love and you share who you are, there's always somebody who can relate. So it does mean a lot.
I love your content. I think that you have a big community of speech pathology students that are trying to get into the program or are speech pathologists. There is so much power and just confidence that comes with that, with you doing that. I'm just so proud of you. I really am. People like you, modern day multicultural woman, to be doing all of this, to be able to have hobbies, be able to be successful at work. You are this almost 30-year-old woman doing so many things for yourself, and you have all these hobbies. So, kind of balancing that and making sure that you're also happy and making sure you cut out the noise. Like, how hard has that been for you?
To be transparent, it's been really hard. I'm not gonna lie. That's kind of the downside as a modern day woman and where I'm coming from and who I am. My struggles is I want to do it all. I want to wear many hats. And I think that's the challenge that continues. I think we all want to do it all, like we want to be, and it's like all these trends. It's like women always need to do it all, no matter what decade they're from. And I think as time goes on, it's like, oh, you got to be a hobby girl too. You got to be healthy. You have to meal prep. Oh, it's soft girl era, you need to be gentle. And it's like, how do you girl boss and be soft girl and have hobbies and work? And I'm not gonna lie, there have been weekends that I have literally broke down because I'm like, and I've asked this, I'm like, how do I do it all? And I'm not saying that I'm miserable. I'm not saying I don't want to I want to do all of it. I just can't fit it in. If I fit something new in, I need to give something else up. And I think the thing that's kept me going is the self reflection and thinking, what do I need to give up right now? What's not worth it? What's not bringing me joy right now? What do I need to prioritize? So, also being in a relationship and putting my energy into a relationship and making sure that it's growing and that I'm present and I'm being supportive, but also taking care of myself and eating healthy. I'm trying to work out and be healthy as well and taking on my hobbies. And then my career, like being an SLP, it never stops. No one's really paying you to stay educated and keep up with the research. That's something that I commend SLPs or people in healthcare because we kind of have to do it if we care about patient care and if we care about our patients. So that's something we tend to do off the clock is study and take courses even until now. So it's just signing up for a million things and then figuring where it all fits. And I'm not even a mom yet.
Oh my gosh, Tamara, you made me teary-eyed. You probably couldn't see it, but just you naming all of these expectations that you have for yourself. A lot of it for me is because I feel like I have to do it all. And then if you work out a certain way, make sure you work on this part of your body. You need to fit into these bubbles that constantly change.
Mhm.
Think that's the hardest part is that you can't even keep up. Like, and you said it, like, I'm not even a mom either. I just break down and I'm like, this is a lot. Like, these expectations are way too much. It comes with a cost. I think that we are rewriting that. And like I said, just exposing yourself to everything. I think that I've really enjoyed exposing myself to everything before kids. Because I think once kids comes around, like, I can't even imagine it. I've told my husband, like, "Hey, I hope you know I'm not gonna be the person that is gonna do it all. I'm not gonna be the super mom." Because I think that's toxic.
Mhm. So I agree with that. And I think even though I may sign myself for up for a million things, that's something, what you just shared about pouring into yourself. That's something that I also want to do because I do believe that when someone can pour into themselves, maybe it can help with being a better parent. And we all want to be the best parents that we can. And I just want to make sure that I've given myself all the tools that I've needed to grow as an individual before I am a mom. We want to give our kids the best that we can. And I think part of that is giving yourself your own experiences before you pour into your kids.
Preach. Yes. You said that perfectly. I've said this before in another episode, but we have this timeline for ourselves. And I think that is what a modern day woman is now. Someone that is able to think of, okay, that path, actually, let's tweak it a little bit. So I want to know, what advice do you have for those navigating cultural identity while also striving for personal growth?
That's a never ending question. And I think the answer, it never ends because the big thing is self reflection. For me, it's always reflecting on how do I feel about these expectations? How do I feel about this culture and the traditions? What do I align with? What do I want to keep and carry on? And to be quite frank, what are some things that I don't want to carry on within my background and culture? To be real, there are some areas that just don't align with, I think, who I am. And I don't want to carry them on into my kids. I don't want to set those same boundaries or expectations. And there are some things that I hold to my heart and I value. And I think it's constantly thinking that and wondering, how do I feel about this? And what I want to keep with me and take with me? And what are some things that I'm okay with cutting off and letting go?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Definitely. So before we let you go, thank you so much for everything. But I want you to share with us, what are your hopes and aspirations for the next, say, 5 years in your career and in your personal life?
Gosh, I think when it comes to hopes within my career, I just want to figure out where I feel like I'm meant to be. I've had several goals on what I want to do with my job and my career, but I'm always reflecting on, you know, is this truly going to make me happy? Is this something that I see myself doing long term? Or is this an expectation by society? And I think I always have to ask myself so that way maybe one day I'll figure out, how do I really feel about it if I were to put everything else aside, all of those expectations? And I think within life, I just want to be able to balance, find that balance between what makes me happy, what I want to accomplish, what am I okay with letting go? And I think that's a really hard one for me because again, I want to do it all, I want to experience it all, but we can't. We can't always do that in life, so we have to try to figure out um, what truly makes us happy when we put all the other expectations aside. And so this year, I think I've signed up to do a lot of things. I've experienced a lot of things. And I'm just hoping the next 5 years, I learn more about myself in a sense of where are my boundaries? What am I okay with letting go of? And what do I still want to hold on to truly make me happy? So that way I can pour more into myself and more into my future family.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, Tamara.
Well, thank
It
you for having me.
it really has been such a fun time to even learn more about you myself and have you on here. Can you please tell everyone where to find you on social?
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay. So my TikTok is actually my name. I like to keep both my names. So Tamara Gabrielle, but Gabrielle with two E's. You can definitely find me there. I'm also on Instagram where I'm starting to share more about my job and more about my hobbies and my relationship. My Instagram is T Gabrielle T. So you can find me on both. Both are pretty much public. And again, I love to answer questions about my job. If anyone has any questions about being an SLP, I would love to hear from you, hear your thoughts, hear your concerns if you're trying to figure out the next step, but also the hobbies that I love too. I engage with pretty much everything, everything that I love.
Yeah, after hearing this episode, I think we have a good idea that you're just someone that loves to experience everything and I'm loving this journey for you. I'm so excited for everyone to hear this. Please reach out to Tamara if you have any questions, find her on her social, and do not forget to follow us on our socials, subscribe, like, share, do all of that fun stuff. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our channel on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and any other platform you listen to podcasts on. As Chicas and Chai, follow us for more content on Instagram at Chicas and Chai Podcasts.